Hey, what's up guys? Matt here coming to you from Laidlaw, Harley-Davidson. So today I want to talk to you guys about bagger bars and how they've evolved over the years and the trend we've seen most recently with the T-bars on baggers. And as we all know, styles change over the years. Riders' preferences mold and shape based on the style of bike they want and also based on the type of riding that is most prevalent at the time as well. Over the last 20 years, I've seen a lot of different styles and handlebars, and that's one of those unique factors about Harley-Davidson motorcycles in general, one of those key customizable parts of the motorcycle that really define the specific style and function of that motorcycle. Around the LA area in the early 2000s, a lot of bikes around here were characterized by ape hanger bars. It almost seemed like the taller you went, the more manly you were. Pretty much everything that didn't have a batwing fairing on it was just getting these huge ape hanger handlebars. And although that style is very relevant, I feel like it's tapering off a little bit and it's becoming a little bit more of a niche style for guys that are going for like that Vikla or that gangstered out softail or bagger or whatever it may be. And then around 2008, where the road glide and the street glide started to become very, very popular, and that custom bagger look started to hit the scenes real hard. Baggers were less about traveling and the functional benefits of the storage and the wind protection. Now they were becoming like hot rod baggers. They were getting slammed with the big shroud, the stretched bags. A lot of those bikes had the taller bagger bars on them, and they were getting really thick and just custom looking, different colors and things like that. We saw a lot of the meat hook styles that were designed specifically for the batwing or the shark nose fairings. The 12-inch, the 14-inch bars became really popular, and that's actually what I'm currently running on my bike. I currently have a 14-inch Vindicta, like an angular bar, like a bagger bar for the batwing fairing. And then around the 2018-2019 time period, we started to see the T-bars creep into the bagger world, and that look really came to life a lot in the dynas scene, where a lot of guys were tricking out their dynas and making them club-style dynas with the tall T-bars, with the quarter fairings and everything. And that style first started to really grow on the dynas scene, like the Dynabro club-style dynas, where a lot of guys were doing the T-bars on them. And that style's been going on for a long time now, but I really feel like it started to hit mainstream in a big way right around that 2008-2009 time period. That's when I feel like the clubbed out dyna really started to hit mainstream, and the guys that weren't actually in clubs started doing it. But then somehow those moto style T-bars made their way over to the baggers as well. And maybe it's partly because some of these dyna riders are now graduating up to a touring bike. They're doing longer riding. They want that same moto style and aggressive look and feel that the T-bars deliver on their bike. And we've also seen the rise of the performance baggers, where this is a key trait on those bikes as well. So right now in this time period, I feel like we're seeing the biggest climb in popularity in T-bars on baggers. We're at a point now where I want to say at least half of the baggers that we do custom bar jobs on are some form or fashion of a T-bar. I personally predict that this style will only get more popular. I do not think this has peaked at all. Is it for everybody? No. Should people feel like they need to do this even if it's not really their style, their jive? No, absolutely not. But is it something new and fresh, and does it tie into the increasing popularity of the performance bagger scene? Absolutely. So I've enlisted the help of one of our best parts guys, Brandon, and I'm going to have him take us through some of the details on T-bars, on baggers, things to look for, some of the pros and cons, and hopefully give you guys some information that will help you decide if T-bars are best for your bagger preferences. And if you've already decided that you want T-bars on your bagger, maybe this video will give you a little bit of information on guiding your direction on which ones to get exactly. And then we're going to jump over to Andrew. He's had several bikes, including dynas and baggers, that have had the T-bar setups. He's tried a lot of different brands over the years as well, so I wanted him to weigh in with his opinion on this subject as well.
So I'm Brandon here in the parts department. Some of you guys have probably seen me in some of Matt's videos already. Just a brief history on myself. Grew up riding like dirt bikes and things in Southern California pretty much my whole childhood. Later into the Harley world, coming into that side of things, a riser bar setup and T-bar setups for me felt comfortable and felt familiar in a sense. You see these T-bar setups and riser setups really jumping over. Not to say that T-bars and risers weren't already a popular thing, especially out here on the West Coast, just being so many people can lane split and you don't want to be sitting in traffic. You want to kind of be as narrow and tight as possible. Sometimes big giant ape hangers at 39 inches wide can just be a bear in traffic. So bringing your bars in kind of nice and tight, sometimes having that 30-inch to 31-inch span or width just helps you kind of get that control and leverage over your bike. So sometimes when you have a big 39-inch wide handlebar and you're just swinging, I think Mickey even said it's like hugging a tree sometimes, like when you go into those turns. So having just a moto style setup is sometimes it's more comfortable. And with that shift in performance on a big bike makes a world of difference. With my bike here, I'm running a Thrash and Supply 9.5-inch pullback with a 1-inch mid-bend bar, which is about a 4-inch bar. So this gives me a perfect about 13-inch rise in total. So again, really familiar, doesn't go past my shoulders. I'm not feel like I'm really stretched out. This is already a big, heavy bike as it is. So having that control up high and being able to, again, dip into a turn with confidence, hugely inspiring. But I mean, a lot of it just comes down to styling at the end of the day. Like I said, West Coast styling is so popular. We see now running all over the country. Like I said, all these guys doing performance builds, big custom paint. It doesn't matter what full fairing or if you have no fairing. We kind of can make a modular system to fit that bike. Everyone's jumping on the trend with these clip-on style gauge mounts, or you can put them up high, put them down low. The list goes on and on when really it comes to modularity in handlebar setups. So just talking about pros and cons when it comes to T-bars versus, again, some other setups. T-bars can sometimes be made to fit and not always a direct bolt-on. Luckily, in some cases, like for instance on, say, Road Kings, where you don't have fairings and all these extra shrouds you actually have to cover, some parts are going to be a direct bolt-on. Other parts, say like on street glides, road glides, you kind of have to cut to fit or maybe even massage to fit in a sense. Perfect example would be on a performance setup such as this. On the pullback plates that can make these fit onto these bikes, you do have to massage, shave, cut down on a couple plastics and things like that. Not to say it can't be done or it's not aesthetically pleasing. There's a right and wrong way to do everything. Ergonomics is huge though. So what ergonomics means to you is what's gonna fit on your bike and how it's gonna fit for you. So again, everyone's different. Everyone has taller upper body, shorter upper body. Sometimes even seat placement can make a big difference. Where you're just sitting, again, how you're confident and how you sit on your bike is what makes the difference and makes the bike for you. Pros and cons, again, is the modularity sometimes. Like you don't always have to cut. Sometimes you can just remove parts and say add a gauge relocation kit or things like that, where you can relocate your factory parts without having to cut, and you still maintain those OEM factory parts in case you ever wanted to take them off. So again, one of the big pros is modularity. There's so many different options when it comes to height, spacers, pullback plates. If you want to hide your wires or have the big old spaghetti wires. On a riser like this, you have perfect example of modularity. We can move all your gauges up, so you have your speedo intact in plain sight where you can see it. Modularity allows you to not be able to have to cut. You're able to relocate things and move them up and out of the way, whether it's for a softail or for a road glide, or if you want to hide your wiring. Some risers even have a hidden plate where you can hide wiring on the inside and again clean up your setup as well. A really good company that does modularity really well is a company called Kraus. Kraus offers so many different pullback plates and so many different options for, again, road glides, street glide, as you guys saw. Whether you want to do a straight riser, again, it all comes down to preference. If you have a straight rise with a taller handlebar, you get that adjustability out of the handlebars, and you can have a mid-bend bar or a tall bar. The benefit of the modularity is if you don't like the low bar, you can switch out for, say, a high bar. If you're a taller guy and you didn't like your low bar setup, you can change it. And it's relatively inexpensive to replace just a handlebar rather than your whole riser setup, or replacing your whole handlebar setup, or running even the wiring on a big ape hanger. Again, very inconvenient sometimes when it comes to rewiring. Really, it comes down to preference and what's going to work for you, and everybody's going to be different. Having your rider triangle is super important, especially on longer trips. And again, keep in mind, I have a standard inseam 5'10" average guy on a pretty much a stock seat, and a 13 fits me just right. And again, everyone's a little bit different. Some guys have longer arms, some people have longer torsos, but this tends to be the most popular positions that we see. Getting on a road glide and street glide, there's a little bit more that goes into building it and thought process of how you set it up, because you have a screen that obviously I don't have on a Road King. Setting your riser and your pullback plate with your bar is huge to where you can see your navigation, where you can answer your phone calls, where you can, your brain of your bike. Road glides have a little bit different setup than say a street glide has, because the road glide fairing obviously is a frame mounted fairing. So your screen sits up higher. You can kind of have a riser that sits a bit lower with a taller handlebar, which still gives you that clearance to be able to look and see your screen very clearly. Street glides, you don't see quite as much, just being it's a different fairing setup. It moves with the handlebars. Everything's a little bit tighter to your bar and riser setup that you choose. Not that there's one worse than the other. It's what's going to work in regards to seeing your screen, being able to, again, navigate your touch screens, things like that. So you don't see them a lot on the street glides nearly as much, although a lot of people don't realize that they do fit on the street glides, and there's so much modularity that can make the street glide still work for you, as we keep seeing with these performance builds coming out.
Hey, what's up guys? Andrew here from Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson, and I kind of want to touch on what I've used in the past and what I've had on different bikes and the different bikes I've owned, and kind of where I came from and where I am now. So one of my first Harleys was a Street Glide Special back in 2017. That bar setup, I went with a Vindicta 14-inch meat hook style bar. I put about 15,000 to 18,000 miles on that bike, went across country on it. The style was awesome, but for me, as an aggressive rider, bars being that high and that wide didn't really vibe well with that particular style for what I like to get out of the bike. Bars being that high and that wide, kind of turning, you get more leverage on that front end, and it kind of feels more wishy-washy. Awesome for, deluxes and kind of the Vikla builds, and even for the, baggers having meat hook style bars. Really great, looks awesome, but kind of for performance riding, if you will, kind of hooligan riding like I do, and canyon carving, and kind of getting up there in the RPM range and getting hard through the turns. Bars that big and wide just didn't really work well. They look awesome, but didn't really care for them too much in that aspect. Then shortly after that, I got a dyna, and that dyna I put on the hard case performance risers with a moto bar on it. I think it had a Renthal bar on it. I grew up on dirt bikes. I grew up behind the bars of a KDX 220 two-stroke, so that was just a moto style kind of bar. Really familiar when it was on the dyna, really liked that feel. More narrow. And when you are aggressive riding through canyons or even long distance, I just really like having the bars up and more narrow. After that, I bought another Lowrider S, and that had a Lucky Dave's Lucky 13 bar on it. It was a one-piece bar style setup. Came up and bent towards you. That was about a 13-inch rise. One piece, cool, like the style. They're very cost efficient. When you are trying to do a T-bar setup, they cost about half the price as a riser and moto style bar setup. After that, skip a few, I'm on my 2017 Road King now, and ended up going with a Kraus setup. I went with a Kraus setup on my 2019 Road Glide as well, and really love the Kraus. They have what they call an isolated bushing. So when you do upgrade your bars, whether you go a ape hanger, meat hook style, you're changing risers or whatever have you, you're changing bars in general, the first thing you want to do is get a polyurethane bushing. And what that does is it makes a more rigid clamp from your riser or your bar to the triple tree. The stock bushings that come from the factory are more of a hard rubber, and there's more give. So when you are raising your bars, you're adding leverage. So when you're on the bike and you got 13 inches of leverage, you're pushing and pulling when you're stopping and accelerating on a point that's very low. So when you get on some bikes, some stock bikes or even used bikes that have stock bars, you can get on the bike and push and pull the bars back and forth. You can feel a lot of that play, and polyurethane bushings really eliminate that. But what Kraus has done is they give you a hard aluminum bushing that goes in your triple tree that bolts down in at the lowest point. So that's more of a firm, rigid mount to the triple and the bar setup where they meet. And then they end up putting the polyurethane bushings up in here. So they cut your leverage in half. Instead of having 10 inches of leverage, you have about 5. So you're not really yanking on it. It cuts that in half, and that's a really big benefit for a setup that is geared more towards an aggressive rider. And I noticed over the years, the higher the bars are, the less I like them. Because I built this bike, it's not a performance bagger. It's purpose built to my riding style. I do a lot of aggressive riding, pair that with a lot of long distance riding. So I want my bars to handle my aggressive riding style and be comfortable when you're stacking 700 miles in a day. So the seat that I have here is a Saddleman seat, and you have to take that in consideration when you are doing a bar setup and you're changing your seat and your pegs. You're changing the ergonomics to the bike. So what I recommend to a lot of new customers that are looking to do bars and, oh, which bar is good for me? That's really a hard question to answer to somebody that you don't know. You know, their height, their, you know, riding style, stuff like that. So you change the bars, you change the seat, it can put you further, could put you higher, could put you further back, which changes the feel of where you grab the bar. So take that in consideration when you are bar shopping. The best thing you do, and I recommend, is go to your local Harley-Davidson dealership and check out their used section. If they have bars there, sit on the bike, sit on the seat. You know, if they have seats in stock, ask them if they can bolt it on for you really quick. And, you know, because it's a big investment to buy bars that you don't like. Personally, I don't like being above my shoulder line. I like being a little bit lower so your blood flow is a lot easier. Not to say this is perfect, but it's where I like it. I'm still getting numb hands on long distance trips, which cruise control helps eliminate that. You shake out your hands, you're back on it. Kind of do your research before you pull the trigger on a $1,500 setup with, you know, labor and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much wraps it up.
Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Hopefully we were able to give you guys enough information to make an educated decision if you're looking to transfer to Bagger T-bars. If you're looking to equip your Bagger with some T-bars or one of the styles you've seen in the video, please hit us up here at Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson. If you don't live in close proximity to us, make sure you check out matt-laidlaw.com for all your aftermarket parts needs. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. We always try to get back to everybody. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Later.